back to my channel. It has been a minute since I have been able to record. The holidays are super busy for me, as you can imagine, and so I decided to take a couple-week break off to just enjoy the holidays with my family and to just rejuvenate. And so I'll only be posting a few more videos here and there until the new year. I decided to go ahead and film my end of the year book tag. There are so many variations of this book tag and I saw lots of different ones, but I decided to go with the one that Rachel Catherine posted last year, and she got that from Destiny, who I think created these questions based off of reviewers' questions. And I loved the questions that they chose for this and decided to go ahead and go with this one. But there are so many different ones and there are so many different creators of that book tag, but I decided to just switch it up and do some different questions that I felt like were more interesting to me. I will go ahead and link them below and their videos below of when they did this. The first question is most disappointing book of the year. For this one, I chose Nothing Like the Movies. I would not say the worst book I read, but it, for me personally, was the most disappointing only because I was so excited for it and hyped up for it because I loved Better Than the Movies, and that is why it was such a disappointment to me. I just thought that there really didn't need to be a second book because I feel like it kind of ruined what I loved so much about the main characters. So if you really love their personality and their sweet romance and the happy-go-lucky, just their characteristics in the first one, I just personally don't recommend reading the second one. I feel like it ruined what I loved about them in the first book. The next question is Underdog Book of the Year, so like the underrated book of the year. For me, I chose One Perfect Couple by Ruth Ware, and that's because I feel like a lot of my friends and just people I know didn't love this one as much as I did. And I find that very shocking, so I just want to hype it up because I gave this book 5 stars and I absolutely loved this book, and I do think it's underrated. I feel like a lot of people rag on Ruth Ware. I'm not sure why. Like, is she the most amazing thriller author? No. But I personally think she's way better than Frida McFadden, so I just find it surprising. But I just love her newer things. I have not read her older stuff, so maybe I wouldn't love those as much because I know a lot of people who don't like her now loved her old stuff and don't like her new stuff. So maybe I wouldn't love the older stuff. I don't know, but I do have some older Ruth Wares on here that I will get to eventually. The next question is a book that was overhyped. So for this one, I have picked several. The most recent fresh in my memory is Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney. This one is so hyped. And it did not live up to those expectations for me. I gave it 3 stars. I feel like this book was not as suspenseful and not as jaw-dropping as everyone made it seem. It was kind of boring. The twist was cool, but like the rest of it, I don't know. I felt it to be very underwhelming, and I think that everyone hyping it up to me made me really have high expectations going into this book. So that is one that I would think of the most for this one. The next one, don't come at me, would be Heartless by Elsie Silver. This one is so hyped, probably more than the last one I mentioned. I did not like this one. I really did not like this one, and I'm not sure why. Everybody loves this series. I have yet to love this series. And I just think that for me, it's because there is no plot. In her books, like, there is no depth so far to these relationships. This one, I get it, he has a kid, but still all they talk about is the physical, and it's just, I'm not buying it. Like, I'm not buying her romance right now. So I just did not love this one. I thought it was really cringy. The next overhyped book that I have on my list is Fable. I did not like this book. I gave this 2 stars, and I know so many of my friends love it, and I'm so sorry. But I just thought it was so boring. I DNF'd it. I didn't have anything in this book that was making me want to read it, so I just could not continue. And then last on this list, I have The Bodyguard by Catherine Senner, which I know, again, so many people really love this one. I didn't buy this romance at all. I really did not. I don't feel like they had any chemistry. I also think there are some stuff I specifically remember some parental issues with the guy that I just thought was horrible, the way that they treated him. I can't see myself ever being like this with my children if something was truly an accident. Whether it be, like, even if it was extreme, I just can't see realistically ever holding a grudge against them over this for years and years, knowing that it's an accident and that they are extremely regretful. There was just a lot of issues I had with the family in this book, and also their relationship was not believable whatsoever to me. I felt like they seemed like friends. So the next question is favorite book couple. For me, that is Johnny and Shandon in the Binding 13 series. I don't think you can see it up there. I don't have the first 2 books. I have the last 3. I'm slowly collecting them. So I've read the first 2, and they are my favorite book couple that I've read this year. I think that they are just so supportive of each other. Their romance is just so beautiful and sweet, and Johnny is so good to Shannon, and I just adore them as a couple. The next question is favorite main character. This one was a little hard for me because I don't have a lot that really stick out in my mind, but I went back and looked through, and I do really remember loving Misery from Bride. I think that she is hilarious, and I think that her comebacks were just so funny. I absolutely loved her sarcasm, and so she is one that sticks out in my mind. And the next would be Luther from the Evermore series, one of the best guys in a fantasy book that I've read in a while, and I just really, really loved his character. The next question is a book that surprised you. The first one that comes to mind is Return to Me by Lynn Austen, and that is because I really didn't think I was going to love this book. I do love her fiction books, but biblical fiction is a little harder for me to get into, but I did end up really loving this one once I got past, like, it is a little bit weighty, and so it took about 20-ish% for me to really get in it, and then after that I was just really sucked in and getting so much from it. And I feel like I really was surprised at how much I ended up really loving this book, and I will be reading the rest in the series. The next book in the same question would be Expiration Dates by Rebecca Searle. And the reason this book really surprised me is because I do not typically like literary fiction, and this one is a little bit like that. I really wasn't sure I was gonna like it, but I ended up loving this book, and I think I read it in a day. So I do highly recommend it, as well as Terms and Conditions. This surprised me. This was the second in the Fine Print Billionaire series, and the reason this surprised me is because I hated the first book. I hated the fine print, and I said I would never read this series ever again. I was not going to continue, and then my friend Gwen encouraged me and said that she really loved the second 2 in the series but hated the first one. Well, I don't know if she said she hated it, but she didn't love it, and so she really is who encouraged me to try it, and I am so glad I did, because I went from hating the first book to absolutely loving the second book, Terms and Conditions, and I gave this 5 stars. I loved this couple together, and I loved the storyline. I love the arranged marriage trope. I just think that's so interesting, and obviously enemies to lovers. I just really had a great time with this book, so I will be reading the last one, which I think is most people's favorite. And I didn't put this on the list, but I would also say another book that surprised me was A.J. Fickery. I believe this was actually the first real lit fic, like actually called lit fic book that I loved. I don't like lit fic at all, and this was the first one that was straight up lit fic that I gave 5 stars and absolutely loved, so that one did surprise me. The next question is a new favorite author you discovered in 2023. I do have the book for this. Sorry, I don't have a lot of these books because they were either I sold the books if I didn't intend to read again, I lent them out, or I had borrowed from the library or KU. So the Live and Let Chai series, the author that I have discovered this year that I love and now want to read everything by is Bree Baker, which is a pen name. She also has a Christmas series, which she is called Jacqueline Frost, And then I believe she's also the author of the Apple Cider Mystery series. So she's got several different pen names. I just love her writing in a cozy, and this is the first cozy I ended up really loving. So I will be finishing up the series at some point. I just haven't gotten to it yet, but I have read the first two and love them. And I can't wait to read the third one here shortly. But I just really love her cozy mystery series. So if you haven't found a cozy mystery series that you really enjoyed yet, I highly recommend trying this one because a lot of people loved this series. The next question is the happiest read of the year. I would say, this is so silly, but I would say Garlic and the Vampire because it was just so sweet and cute and funny. And I just remember laughing at all of the graphics and just the characters and the things that they said. So I would definitely classify this as the happiest book of the year. It is just a good time and it's just so cutesy. Like, I highly recommend, even if you don't like graphic novels, because I just don't tend to love reading those. I loved this one. I gave it 5 stars. The next question is most frustrating book of the year. Okay, so the most frustrating book that I remember reading is called The Neighbor Wager. I don't remember the author. I did DNF this one. It is a NetGalley arc I had received and I did not finish it. I thought the characters were horrible. I thought the writing was horrible. There was nothing about this book that I thought was good. Honestly, I do not recommend even bothering. It's just not good. And then the next one is going to rub some people the wrong way, but the most frustrating book of the year, aside from that, would be Happy Place. And this is because I remember being so annoyed the whole time that this book is called Happy Place, which I just think is so deceiving. And I get why she called it that. It's their happy place. I get that. But like, it's so deceiving going into this book thinking this is gonna be like a happy summer read. It is not happy. It is so depressing. This book is not at all what I expected going into it, and that is the number one reason I was so frustrated with it. The second one being that nothing happened in this relationship at all until 60% in this book. For 60%, nothing was happening. I just did not like this book at all. I gave it 2 stars and I was extremely frustrated by this book. The next question is best adaptation of the year. So I don't watch a lot of TV. I don't watch a lot of movies in general. So I went ahead and picked the best adaptation. I did watch this year, but it is based off a book I read last year. I have 2 in mind. One being The Last Thing He Told Me by Laura Dave, I think it is. I read this last year and they do have that adaptation on Apple TV. I thought they did a great job. It's exactly like the book, like verbatim. It is the book in TV form. I thought they did a great job with that. And then the second one I would say is Dark Matter, which I just finished. I loved this show so much, and I will say they did change a lot, but I don't think it took away from the story. I think that it just made the TV show more interesting and different from the book, and so I loved that they did that. I love that they changed some things up, and so I do highly recommend watching the Dark Matter TV series, which is on Apple TV. The next question I have is the longest book that you read this year. I didn't really go through and like count all the pages. It's between Heat of the Everflame, Glow of the Everflame, or Crescent City, and I'm gonna say it's probably Crescent City that is the most pages. I'm trying to remember exactly how many pages this is. It's 800 pages. So if I'm wrong, I will put up here if Heat or Glow of the Everflame is longer than 800 pages, but I think that this is the longest book that I read this year. And then the next question is the shortest book that I read this year, and that was The Forgotten Chapter. I believe it's 35 or 40 pages. And I really love this one. I think for a short story, it packed a lot in it. I can't remember anything though, so maybe it's like living up to his name, The Forgotten Chapter. But I literally can't tell you much about this one at all. I just remember really enjoying it when I read it. I do know it was for a challenge and I was rushing a little bit, which is probably why I can't remember, but I do think it's worth your time. It's a really great short story, historical fiction. The next question is favorite book covers. I would say is The Spell Shop. This is my favorite cover of the year for sure. And I also really love the Frozen River cover. I really think that that's one of the major reasons that I picked up the Frozen River, and the Spell Shop was the cover. So absolutely love both of those covers. The next question is a book you haven't stopped thinking about. First one that comes to mind is the Binding 13 series. The first 2 books, I think about that all the time. I think about those characters all the time. I cannot wait to read the 3rd book. And honestly, like, other than ACOTAR and Third of Class, like Sarah J. Maas books, this is one of the only non-fantasy books that I think about as much as I did ACOTAR, which is saying a lot, because that is hard for me to find, because I just don't in general love other genres as much as fantasy. And so I am so excited that I found a new series that the characters just really have stuck with me, that I absolutely love. The next question is the cringiest book you have read this year. The cringiest book I've read this year, I recently read last week, and that was How My Neighbor Stole Christmas. If you know, you know. I'm not gonna explain it, but there are some extremely graphic, disgusting spy scenes in this that ruined the entire book for me. I was loving this book until about 60%. And it completely ruined the entire book for me, and I rated it 2.5 stars. That's how horrible. These scenes were just so out of the blue, and these characters started acting completely different. It was like a whole new author. So I would say that is the cringiest book for sure. And then the next question is unpopular book that you have loved. This one comes to mind first for me, and that is Homefront by Kristen Hanna. I'm not saying that it doesn't have great reviews. I'm pretty sure it does. But I think this one's unpopular in the sense that her other books are talked about a lot more. And I thought this book was incredible. I gave it 5 stars. I absolutely loved it. I highly recommend it. And I actually loved this more than The Woman. I gave The Woman 4 stars, and I gave this one 5 stars. And I think that this one, for me, was just so beautiful. And I can't describe it. I just think that if you're a parent, you're gonna really love this even more. But I feel like the family dynamic, the struggles with the parents and the kid, and just like having to be deployed and just different stuff like that were so realistic that it really got to me. I haven't personally experienced this, but I just thought it was so beautifully well done that I felt like I understood them, and I understood what maybe it could be like to be put in this situation. Again, I haven't experienced any of this, but it really like captured what it would be like if you had someone deployed in your family, and also just having difficulties in your marriage and difficulties being a parent all into one. I just thought she did such a great job, and I do think this one should be talked about more. I really loved it. The next question is the highest and lowest books that you read on Goodreads, and do you agree? So I looked through all of the books I read this year, and the lowest rated book I read was The Gift by Frida McFadden, and it is a 3.28 average rating. I definitely agree with this. I gave it 2 stars. This book is trash. I just thought it was so dumb. Like, it's a short story, I get it, but there was just absolutely no point to it at all. Like, it was so unrealistic. Nobody would do this. It was so stupid. And I literally feel like this book, I don't know. Like, I don't know. Some people think it's good. I can't for the life of me figure out why. I just think there was absolutely 0 point to this book. And the highest book that I had on my list for this year was The Woman, and that came in with the highest average rating, which is 4.62. I do agree with that. I know that I did not personally rate it higher. I rated it 4 stars, but I do agree with this being such a highly rated book, and I do get it because it is impactful and it is incredible, and for a lot of people, this was their first Kristen Hanna book, so I absolutely get it. For me, the reason it was 4 stars instead of 5 is because I've read a lot of Kristen Hanna, and it's not my favorite of hers. I think that the last half, there was a lot of unrealistic things that I felt like kept happening. I think her name was Frankie, and it was making it unbelievable because it seemed like she just was adding in so much suffering for her just for the sake of making it sad. I understand a lot of the struggles that she had. It did make sense coming out of the war, but there were several things added that I just think made it unbelievable and unnecessary. It was just too much. It was too many bad things happening. So that's why I gave it 4 stars. The next question is the favorite quotes of the year. So for me, a lot of my favorite quotes that I have came from Quicksilver, Binding 13, Return to Me by Lynn Austin, and the Everflame series. And I can't read a lot of the quotes that I have saved because they are spoilers. So I just wrote down one quote. I believe it's from, Heat of the Everflame. And it says, "Show me your worst, my darling, and I'll show you how far my love can go." And I was trying to also just pick a shorter quote because a lot of the quotes that I've highlighted are long. I didn't want to write all those down. But then another one that I loved that always came up in, I think it was Finding 13, was they would always say "for keeps." And I just thought it was such a cute saying that they would say to each other. Book with the most unique concept. I would say for me that would be Belladonna. That would probably be the most unique book that I read this year. I do think the concept of this one is something I've never read before, and I do think it's extremely unique, and that's what intrigued me so much about it, that she falls in love with death. I just think that concept is so hard to grasp, and I did really end up enjoying this one quite a bit. So that would be my pick for that one. The next question would be the book you would reread. So for me, that would be Iron Flame, because I do plan on reading the whole series over again. Another book that I plan on rereading is Crescent City, because I didn't understand half of it when I read it the first time, so I do plan to reread it. And then the Binding 13 series, I definitely plan to reread. The next question is reading goal reflection and reading goal. So my reflection for the past year of reading would just be that I think I spend a lot of time trying to join all of the things, all of the book clubs, all the readathons, and I feel like that took down my enjoyment of reading, trying to just be involved in every single little thing. While I do love doing all of these things with people and I do think it's so much fun, I do feel like it took away my enjoyment, feeling like I had to read these things to fit certain prompts, and I couldn't just pick up a book that I just felt like reading at that time because I was in a rush to complete these challenges. I think those are fun once in a while, but I just think I'm going to pull back from doing those as often next year because I just want to enjoy my reading experience and I just want to read what I feel like reading at that moment. So that would go right into my 2024 reading goal, which would just be that I want to mood read more. I want to just pick up a book because I feel like reading it and not because it's on my TBR. And so that is definitely my plan for 2024. My second goal is to complete series that I've started, which I am typically pretty good at doing, but there are some that I'm in the middle of that I would like to complete. And so that is definitely a goal for next year. And then lastly, what are you prioritizing in 2024 with your reading goal? I kind of already answered this, but I'm prioritizing finishing series, and then I would say as far as genres go, fantasy and historical fiction, just reading those way more, even more than I did this year. And also prioritizing rereading books because I feel like I found myself really wanting to reread the ACOTAR series and just books that I absolutely love, like Fourth Wing, and I want to definitely make time to do that next year because there's just nothing like those books. I've read so many books since then and I still think about them all the time and I just want to read them again. So that wraps up my end of the book year tag. I hope that you all enjoyed this video. Again, I will link below Destiny and Rachel Catherine, which I'm sure you already know, in the comments below and the videos from where they created these questions. And just let me know if you have any other questions. I will answer them in the comments. And until next time, friends, remember to read what inspires you. Bye.